So I'm in a good mood tonight for sure. I got off state parole yesterday, and that's like a that's a big accomplishment for me. I mean, I've been on some form of supervision for the last 17 years, whether it be county, state, federal probation or parole, because I'm a good guy. Um, my I haven't even been allowed to vote. I haven't been able to vote for a long time, and that may seem like who cares about voting? I don't know. It's when you can't do it, you usually want to do it more. Like you can't vote. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get into politics now. Um, and a lot of me, and I've listen. I have never gotten off probation or parole successfully. I'm one of those people that always maxes out, meaning that I go end up doing all the time in jail or prison. They're like, well, you don't have to go. We'll just put you on some sort of supervision. It's very easy. You have to test every 9 months, and I fuck it up, and then I end up going to jail or prison for a long time. Always, every time. I didn't finish federal probation successfully, but state parole I did, and I think a lot of that has to do with that I have a kid, and for the last year it wasn't about me. I had a slip up, one of my best friends died, and I didn't know how to handle it. I'm not the most well-adjusted person because I've been a junkie for 20 years or something. And I never chose probation or parole. I never wanted to live in those kind of confines or invisible prison where they can just kick your door down at any time. They did that while I've been on parole. They did that one time, and they put guns in my face. They put guns in my wife's face. Thank God my kid was sleeping. And they have that power because you're on supervision, and they cuffed me and they were still putting a gun to my face. I'm like, can you lower your weapon? He's like, why would I do that? They act tough, while I'm handcuffed in a chair, and they think they're Dirty Harry, and I'm like, well, I don't want you to shoot me. What the fuck do you mean? I'm a trained professional. I'm like, please, let me Google how many accidental police homicides there were, and how many of them thought they were professionals. It's not like, and I think I have a growing, I think I'm growing up to some degree because some cops are really good people, the ones that are going after chomos, fuck, I'm rooting for them. I watch those To Catch a Predators, and I'm always like, after you meet Chris Hansen, there's a whole sex offender task force that's going to tackle you on the front lawn, and I cheer them on. My kid choked like a week ago. He was playing with a toy and it came apart and he choked on it. I called 911, or my girl called 911. They were here within like 5 minutes. And so, you got to be appreciative that, I mean, all in all, they are civil servants. They work for us. I've tried telling them that. Yeah, now I can do it because I'd always be like, you know what? Hold up. Time out. Check it out, bro. You are a civil servant. You work for me. Got that, bitch? Me. Are you on probation or parole? I'd be like, oh, yes. Put your hands behind your back. And they do that. And then, it's like when you first start dating a girl and they're ripping your car apart because you're on probation or parole. And, maybe the bad boy thing's cool when you're like 19. You're hooking up with 18-year-olds. But then when they start realizing that you don't have a car and you live with your parents and you wear the same wife beater and the same checkered plaid shorts every single day with high socks, the Vans with the holes in them, you're not that cool anymore. Girls grow out of the bad boy thing. Some don't. Some just are tortured their whole life because they're with dirtbags. And maybe I used to be one of those dirtbags, but I certainly don't look at myself like that anymore. Actually, I think I'm a pretty fucking good person, and I go out of my way for a lot of people. And I'm proud to say that, and that's a big part of the whole gig, is being able to look yourself in the mirror and be okay with who you're looking back at. It's a fact, and once you get comfortable with that person, you start growing. Like I said, I mean, I never chose any of this. Maybe I ignored consequences and it happened, but I didn't choose it. Could you imagine if you did? Like, I gotta use this guy's voice. I really like the, he's not, this is just an invented voice, but let me try. Um, Officer, hey homeboy, hey homie, I got some work in my trunk. It's a ticking time bomb, homeboy. Before I use, you gotta supervise me, homeboy. Could you imagine if you taught? Do you think there's people that really do that? Like they get so paranoid, they're like, "I gotta surrender. Fuck it. They're on to me." You just go up to a cop and be like, "Dude, I'm high. I know that you know. Just do what you gotta do. Cuff me." No, there's not. I don't know. I don't think there's. I wouldn't do that. That's crazy. Where was I going with this? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But so I'm starting a new series right now. And we're going to get into my third prison term. But there's so much stuff that happened before that. And may as well go through that. I did an album, so I did a skeletal outline of this stuff. So, there's going to be some things that you already know about, you're familiar with if you've listened to the album. Excuse me. Now on Patreon, you get a free download of the new version of the album, which we're still trying to figure out how to get on CD. It's really difficult because it's so long. I did not know that when I recorded it. I would have had a completely different vision for it if I had known that. But that's one of the perks of signing up for Patreon. Even on the $3 tier, you get a free download of the album. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into that series right now. Right, I don't even know what we'll call it. But this is when I got out a second. When I got out a second time in federal prison for the. This is when I got out of federal prison for the second time. So, we talked about at the end of the last video what it was like leading up to that release date. Time slows down for sure your last week. Well, it does and it doesn't, you definitely are more aware of the clock at that point. You're like, ooh, I got 5 days. And your mind starts playing tricks on you. You're like, okay, I have 5 days left. 3 trays for each day. Okay, so that means I have 15 trays left before I leave. Okay, cool. Breakfast came. Okay, now I'm down to 14. Okay, now lunch came. Now I'm down to 13. And, I was by myself. And I was having conversations with myself. And I was imagining what, my life was going to look like when I got out. And then Jeff wrote me that letter about a week before I got out. And I've had periods with him where we're eating paleolithic diet, which we can get into in other series where we talk about fitness. And him and I work out, pretty similar to, prison style workouts, I can never pronounce it, calisthenics. I probably didn't say it right, but you know what I'm trying to say. We do a lot of bar work, push-ups, pull-ups, and dips. So while I was sitting in solitary confinement, and I was completely cut off from the rest of the world, I had a lot of time to think. And, I'd been writing June Gloom up until that solitary, until the couple weeks that I was in solitary, however long it was. I think it was 3, maybe. Whenever I got extracted of the cell with Hillbilly. And I started thinking a lot about the 3 relationships that I had just had in direct sequential order. My fiance, Casey, is what we'll call her, and how she had left me because I was emotionally unavailable. Prison does that to you. You get so jaded, and, she just wanted a shoulder to cry on, and I just couldn't do it. I'd just be like, I didn't know what to do, and it's awkward, I'm never that comfortable around emotion, even before I went to prison. But now I'm really, because part of prison is learning how to conceal emotion. It doesn't matter what's going on. Under no circumstances do you show that you're human. You're like, nope, human? Fuck no. What? That's disgusting. I don't fuck with that. Nope, I have no morals. Are you kidding? Conscious? Fuck that. Let's just extort people. No. And so by playing that part for so long, you start getting molded into it. And it's very hard to get away from that. So I was thinking about these things, and I was thinking about my relationships, and I was thinking about her particularly because I was comparing Casey to the girl that I had met when I'd gone to rehab, and then the disastrous marriage with that fucking whore. You end up using me. I hate her. Hate's a strong word, but I really dislike her. Let's say that. And the Dear John letter, and then Jeff writing me, he's like, she's posting pictures with black guys, and they have their arms around her. And you're in the hole, and you're like, black guys, plural? The fuck does that mean? How many are we talking? 5, 6, 7, 8? The entire Laurel Canyon? So I had a lot to think about. But anyway, so it came time for me to go. My dad's always very sweet, and he sends me these very encouraging letters. Like, okay, Ryan, 72 hours until you walk out of the prison for the last time in your life. Because he's always convinced that whatever moment I'm in, that's the moment that I got it. And I don't blame him, because it's not his fault that I turned into such a complete rabid drug addict, foaming at the mouth. Like, I'm a hype. I'm like a classic 1970s hype, walking around, naked with like a trench coat and like black socks and like spiked hair. And, what the fuck am I talking about? I'm a hype. I'm a drug addict. I'm a dope fiend. And it came out of nowhere because it's true that addiction is hereditary. And it wasn't on my dad's side. It wasn't on my mom's side. You look at my entire family tree, there's no alcoholism and there's no drug addiction, Very weird that I'm the one, I'm the Robert Downey of the family. But the day that I got out, I was already armed with hope and optimism. I was going to get back in shape, as we talked about, and my parents assured me that they were going to help me get back on my feet financially. I didn't have a car. I still had a cell phone, but I'd lost my apartment, and that's just such a frustrating part of the prison process or the jail process or experience, I guess. The jail or prison experience is you have to assume that first night when you get arrested, or in my case, I self-surrendered, you have to assume everything you had the second before you were put into that facility is gone. Your girlfriend has another dick inside of her. Your car is gone. Your apartment is gone. And you just have to accept that. And true convicts know that, And they're just, it is what it is. And there's a certain level of acceptance that you see with people that are seasoned convicts. So I knew I wasn't getting out with shit. That morning I get out, and like I had said, I ran into somebody, another Peckerwood from Lompoc, and he said that Hillbilly's wife had actually paid my debt. She had sent 100, and the fireballs actually got to who they were supposed to. So I didn't leave there like, Leone, piece of shit, left your owing money. Because you don't want to leave prison owing money, ever. It's a small system, and you're gonna run into people again, and they're gonna be like, damn, look at that dude. He's got some pretty rad color tattoos. They'll be like, that guy. Let me tell you what he did at Lompoc. And then they completely distort what happened. They're like, he was celled up with this guy named Weed, and they had Choma trading cards, and they got caught, and then he was asked to check in or something, whatever. So you always want to leave on good terms, because if you leave on bad terms, people can say whatever they want about you. So I left that place with good terms, and I felt good about that. I also left with a beard, and they gave me some corny white polo shirt, and they gave me these Wrangler jeans. And I remember sitting on the bench, I walked out the gates, and I remember the feeling wasn't as cathartic as it was the first time that I'd gotten out of federal prison. Because this is the second time I got out of prison. First time I'd done 5 years, little under 5. But this time I had done 3 months, 90 days. 90 days isn't enough where you get out and, you're doing Morgan Freeman shit, like, cause just weren't as fast as they used to be when I was friends with Andy Dufresne. You're not like narrating shit like that, you know? It's 3 months. Nothing really fucking happens in 3 months except your whore girlfriend is off with some random black guy. That's it. You know, it's nothing life changing. 5 years that was, you know, it was like, I got out, I was like, dude, friend me on MySpace. What the fuck? You know, things happen, especially as fast as technology is evolving right now. You really do get behind. And OG Badger and I kind of touched on that last night, how we're behind technologically. Every time we get out, it's like iPhone 2. And you're like, oh, I get busted for a few years. You get out, there's like an iPhone X. There's not even a home screen anymore. You don't even, you just think shit and it like happens. And that's what's going to happen next time. It's not going to be next time because I have a kid now. But I remember, you know, just getting out and my parents weren't there to get me. That was the plan. But I think they had let me out later than we had originally anticipated. And I remember I left for a second and then walked like right back to the lobby. And I'm like, hey, can I use the phone? And they're like, whoa, no inmates 30 feet from us. Like, I was like, what do you mean? What am I supposed to do? I don't have a phone. What am I supposed to do? They're like, stay away, convict. I'm like, dude, I'm like holding a trash bag full of my belongings. They gave me June Gloom back, so I'm like super happy about that. And I had, for some reason, I had a Stephen King book with me, Finders Keepers, which I like Stephen King, but I don't like that book. And so I had that, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to wait on the bench then. And I remember I had to wait for about an hour, and I didn't even care. It was just so nice to be out and sitting in the parking lot of Lompoc and looking at these, like, the ominous, you know, coil wire and the gun tower, and just be like, man, I'm glad I'm not in there anymore. And my parents finally roll up, and I was really happy to see them. You know, I gave my dad a hug, and my mom came and kissed me on the cheek, and she always gets like really weird and emotional, just like start crying, which isn't weird, but she has the propensity to get a little hyper emotional, which can be awkward when you're dead inside, like I like I proved that I was. That's why Casey left me. And you know, I end up getting in the car, and we drive. It's like an hour. And I'm like, hey, can we stop? Now, I wanted a cigarette. You know, that's what I wanted. I just got out of prison. I wanted a pack of smokes. But I already knew not to tell my parents that. Now, they had given me like some little card with like what was left on my commissary. I think I had like $14 on there. So I already planned like, okay, I'm going to use that to get a pack of cigarettes. Like I like saved it on my, you know, on my account balance or whatever. For whatever reason I remember I had enough to get a pack. And so I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, Dad, can we stop at like a liquor store and can I get a pack of cigarettes? My dad's just like, no. Or no, I asked for one of the disposable vapes. He's like, no, that's the same as tobacco. I'm not supporting that. I'm like, fuck. All right. And I was kind of mad, you know, and I tried to well, I just got out of prison, Dad. He's like, you did 3 months. My dad's always been like way harder than me, you know. He's always like, you can handle waiting another 20 minutes until we get back in town, and then we'll go to like an AM PM or something. So we end up going to one. I get my disposable vape, and I go back up to my house, and I'm like, hey, you have my cell phone, right? My dad's like, yeah. And I'm like, how soon until you turn it on? Because he was paying my bill at that period of my life. And he's like, I never turned it off. I was like, really? So my phone works right now? He's like, yeah. So I turned it on. I had like, you know, hundreds of text messages, mostly people I had money to. Petty money, like, hey, fool, what's up with that $9, dog? That's fucking not cool. And, you know, of course, there was, like, stuff from you are such a, you know, and I'm reading the text from her, it's like, you're probably reading this because you're out and you're trying to score. What the fuck? Who leaves shit like that? Okay, whatever. I'm just deleting her stuff. And I call my best friend, Jeff, and I'm like, what up? It's kind of what, you know, that's what we say when we call each other. And we've been doing that for like 20 years or something. And he's like, hey, what's up? What's the plan for tonight? I'm like, I don't know, man. I kind of, you know, I was single. I'm like, let's go out and party tonight. You know, I think it was a Friday, I want to say. It's a Friday. Yeah, it was a Friday night. And I'm like, let's go out and party tonight. And he's like, yeah. Definitely. I was like, all right, cool. So I talked to my mom, and I'm like, hey, you think you can take me to get a haircut? Because I didn't have a car. And my mom's always super cool when I get out. She lines me up, she'll take me to get my hair cut. She'll take me to like CVS and, things that you take for granted. Like you go to the hygiene section and you're just like, I'm going to get this Colgate whitening mouthwash, and I'm going to get all this shit that I don't need. You get so excited about body wash and, what are those things that people always make fun of me for using? They're like the little Luffy. Why do I have such problems remembering like the most basic stuff sometimes, but I can remember these complex stories. Loofah. A loofah. I always get a loofah. Loofahs are good. Loofahs make you, like, seriously, if you don't use loofahs, your balls are just a source of really foul odor. But if you have a loofah, nope, you're good. I found this. This is like, I'm letting some knowledge out right now. You scrub your balls with a loofah, and then you get stick deodorant, and you put the deodorant on your balls, and it's odor protector. So you're fly. You're tropical at that point. And what else? Oh, and one thing I always get when I get out of prison is I have my mom get me, like, the small electric beard trimmers for shaving my ass hairs, because I'm trying to go rage it, And no, I want to shave I stay trimmed. I mean, it's just, and I didn't know that, like I never did that. I was that guy, the guy with the bush, where like the girl would be like giving you head, and then like they'd be pulling curly pubes out of their mouth, like, and I'm like, oh, are you okay? And they're always like, well, I'm cool, and like they're used to it. You're like, okay, well, I'm not the only piece of shit out there. But then I'd go to prison, and guys in prison are just like, we're like little old ladies. We like sit there like tanning with like cucumber slices on our eyes, and we're just like talking as the sun's on us, and like, you guys shave your balls, right? And I'm like, it was like some foreign stuff to me. I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, what do you mean? What do I mean? You don't? I was like, well, of course I do. But why do you say that? Do chicks not like? They're like, dude, hell no. Girls don't like. Do you like it when there's some huge greasy bush? And like, it just hit me. I was like, I have been completely selfish all these years. And it was a game changer, After that, I went on some like straight up, it was like a hair genocide, dude. It was like I was shaving shit I shouldn't be shaving, like my armpits. I look like some fucking Olympic swimmer. I took it a little too far, but this time, I'd learned, and sometimes I'll hit the chest and stuff, but the pubes are, then you have like a hairy stomach, and you have to kind of form it with a happy trail, but you can make it deceptive, so it makes it look like you have abs. Okay, it doesn't matter. You got, what's with the filler? Just get to the story. So my mom took me to get all that stuff. I got a nice haircut. Then I was like, hey mom, will you take me to go get my eyebrows waxed? And she was like, fine. And so she took me to one, and check it out. I'd never done that before, and except for like 6 or 7 months before that, my ex-wife had taken me to like, I don't know, some sort of supercuts place, and she's like, hit his eyebrows. I'm like, I don't do that. I'm a guy. And she's like, no, do it. And I did it, and I remember like, I got all these Facebook comments, and the girls were like, eyebrows, bomb. Guys would be like, dude, what a, they'd say some derogatory stuff, gay stuff. And, when you get out of prison, you just want to look the best that you possibly can. I was in good shape now. I'd been on Hillbilly's, like, militant, push-up routine. And push-ups, if you already have existing muscle memory, push-ups and body squats, incline, decline push-ups, body squats. I mean, you get lats back from them. You get tricep. I mean, it activates your muscle memories, and you get like your lats built up again. Your back gets, you just get push-ups can get you right if that's all you're doing, and you can do them every day despite what people say. I always take one day off when I'm doing just a push-up thing. But the point is I looked good and I felt good about myself. I looked a hell of a lot better than I had 3 months before, where I'd been drinking about 2/5 of whiskey and I had a heroin habit and I'd been doing all those fentanyl patches. I looked really shot out. And so I felt good about myself again. So my dad ends up taking me, my mom and dad, after I get and when I got the eyebrows done, I remember I was telling the girl, I was like, yeah, I just got out of prison today. Like saying like it was like some topic, some conversation starter. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, but you probably hear that all the time, right? And she's like, never. I'm like, well, I'm sure you do a lot of guys' eyebrows. She's like, you're actually the only guy whose eyebrows I've ever waxed. And then that was the only time that I've done that since. Like, I was so embarrassed. You're in the hole for so long. You're thinking about, okay, when I get out, I'm gonna get my eyebrows waxed, and I'm gonna get some good ass fade. You just start kind of daydreaming about how good you can make yourself look. All these different things you're gonna do. Getting a new outfit, and so we end up going to a steak dinner at this place called Chuck's in Santa Barbara. Really nice place. And I got filet mignon and some sort of salad. And I didn't drink with my parents, but I remember, the waitresses would come and I would just be like, I turned into the hog. I was like, like my breathing was like noted, like you could hear me breathing loud, and my dad's just like, nah, not here, man. I was having some like, it was like a Darth Vader kind of, like, for real though, and it's just when you're in prison, you're like that because there's this, because you're not around women, but when you're in the hole, when you've been jerking off like the same way that you were when you were like 9 or 10 when you first discovered it. You remember that, guys? Like, I don't want to go too into what it was like to jerk off when I was 9, but let's just say I got a lot of stomach aches. Mom, I have a stomach ache. I go to the bathroom and I just get it to, like, pixelated Windows 95 printed pictures of like Carmen Electra and Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy, and it was the coolest shit going on at that point. This is before porn had really taken off on the internet. It's like you could get thong shots from Jenny McCarthy, and they took like 45 minutes to download, and you were stoked. That's what my childhood was like in the 90s. But so after the steak dinner, my parents take me to Jeff's house. So I already had a nice steak dinner. I had my fucking eyebrows waxed. And I didn't think it was obvious. I told the girl, I was like, don't make it too obvious. The first thing Jeff was like, what the fuck's up with your eyebrows? I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. They just kind of grew like that when I was in the hole. They don't give you grooming shit. He's like, no, dude, they look waxed. You can tell when eyebrows are waxed. It's so embarrassing. But, he was still like, he had Suboxone there. I always left like a nice surplus of drugs at his house. If you're on Patreon, or if you've seen the teaser clip on my Instagram for my documentary Idiot Savant, there's like a scene where I'm accusing him of stealing Subutex. I'm like, no, what are you saying? What are you saying? I did all of these. You're tripping. You stole, bro. You stole. He's like, no, I didn't. And I put like the full clip on Patreon. But so I'd always have a reserve of drugs at his house. And I had some Suboxone strips. Now, I'd been doing them at Lompoc. So, I'd spoon them, or acalito, as the homies would call it. And right when I got there, I was like, hey, you got a strip? And we cut it like a nice chunk. Something that cost like $50 in the joint. It was just to celebrate getting out. And I mixed it up in the spoon. Now, he's used to me slamming them, because I was addicted to shooting Suboxone 8 milligram strips for years. Even though, doc, you can't do that. There's naloxone in that. And I'm not telling anyone to, but I was addicted to injecting Suboxone for years and years and years. And he's not used to seeing me not inject it, and he certainly wasn't used to me doing it sublingually the way you're supposed to. So we cut it into what I said, like a $50 little piece. And, I I'm like, dude, check it out. We'll do it prison style. I like laid, upside down, with my waxed eyebrows. I was like, come on. and he just poured it down my nostril, and it burns like chlorine going in there, and it kind of the drip. It's weird. It hurts your throat. It's like a painful drip. If anyone's done this, they know what I'm talking about. And it starts to really mess up your sinuses. Worse than Wellbutrin. And Wellbutrin destroys your sinuses. But it's that like sublingual stuff gets stuck up there. And so, we start talking. And of course, Jeff's my best friend. He tells me this on the phone all the time. He's like, I love being friends with you because I get to hear all your stories all the time. Like, whenever I get out of prison, I'll just like tell him everything that happened. So I spent probably like an hour doing that, and eventually it the Suboxone starts kicking in. So I feel nice and loaded. I feel like I'm on heroin. I mean, I don't have like as intense of euphoria. There's no rush or anything, but I felt a lot better than I did not on it, and right around that time, I get a text message from that girl, Rachel. Now, remember, she used to be my friend's girlfriend, but my friend had cheated on her. That same guy had told on someone that we're friends with. Got him like a lot of time, like 40 years. And this is how I justified even talking to her in the first place. I mean, he wasn't our friend anymore because he had told on someone. We had paperwork on it. And secondly, he treated this girl like shit. And, and I get, it wasn't a text message. She, whenever I get out, I post something on Facebook like, hey, thanks for everybody that sent me letters and put money on my books. I'm talking about like one person, but I feel compelled somehow to make it a public thing just to like insinuate that it was more than one person. Now, there's a few people looking out, but, every time I get out, I post that I'm appreciative that I'm out and for everyone that had done stuff for me. And so this girl, Rachel, had messaged me and been like, oh my God, you're out. We gotta get a drink to celebrate. I'm like, yeah, you can bring your boyfriend. And she messages back and she's like, I don't have one anymore. And I look at Jeff. I'm like, how do my eyebrows look? He's like, bomb as usual. No, he was making fun of me that whole night. And so we end up leaving his house probably around like 7, 8 o'clock. I mean, I'd already gone out to dinner. And we go meet her, and she's with her friend. It was perfect. Me and Jeff, her and her friend. Now, they're already drunk. They've been pre-gaming. And we meet at some, like, really seedy bar on Upper State. I forget the name. No, it's actually a restaurant, too, the Tee Off. Good food, but super alcoholic vibe. It's like a dive bar with nice food. If you know what I'm talking about. They exist all over the country. And they're already drunk. And, it was one of those situations where, I could tell she was happy to see me, but her friend was like, just hating life, the type. The cock block. The one that looks constipated no matter what. Doesn't matter how much. Sometimes they put makeup on, they look more constipated. They're just always have that judgmental snarl. And Rachel's like, so tell me about prison. I'm like, fighting for my asshole every day. Straight up. Fucking war, homeboy. I'm sorry, I really like that voice. And she's laughing and we're having a good time and her friend's just like, eh. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys talk? And me and her will talk. I'm trying to, and like, and my friend Jeff is, he's spiritual. He's not into the meaningless, gratuitous sex. That's not his get down. He's one of those old fashioned that it needs to mean something. And, as you get older, you definitely, I know I have, I'd much rather sleep with someone that I care about than someone that I don't. The meaningless sex thing makes you feel more empty. It's true. I mean, it's not just if you're a girl. If you're a guy too, you go around having meaningless sex and you don't feel that good about yourself. I remember when I got out in 2013, I had a sponsor for a little bit, and he was the drummer of a pretty well-known band, and hardcore alcoholic, but he'd gotten sober. And he was one of my first real sponsors I really took seriously. And I remember I was like pretty much just into the womanizing thing in the meetings, I went there for that. That was it. That was the only reason I went there, And like I let it be known, I was tacky about it, and I was pissing in my own pond. And I remember him telling me, "Look, bro, you didn't get sober to, be a piece of shit to women in recovery." And I remember that single line just totally like gave me a conscience about it. And I was like, "Fuck, you're right." And I'm glad he said that, and I'm glad that I had thought about it. But all that stuff kind of goes out the window when you first get out of prison, because you have that primal like need to stick your wiener inside of a woman. I don't know. It's a prison thing. I mean, you spend so much time, sexually frustrated in there, and then you're finally out there, and it's just so hard not to be like that initially. You get out of your system, and then it goes away, but that's what kind of time I was on that night. And I think her friend knew that. Maybe that's why she had the constipated, judgmental look the whole night. But somehow, and we've all been in situations like this, somehow her friend like whispers to her, and she looks at me all disappointed, like, "We have to go." I was like, fuck. Saw that coming. All right. And you might squeeze Rachel really tight, and then I go to her friend, and it's the awkward, we're both kind of like looking away from each other because we both don't like each other. One of those kind of things. So, and Jeff's not a big drinker. Well, I mean, I don't want to talk shit about my best friend, but he can't handle alcohol. He's the kind of guy that like, I think he broke his leg a few years ago because he went to Not Scary Farm, when they do Halloween theme at Knott's Berry Farm, and he was like, "I'll fight anybody," and like some guy was like, "I'll fight you," and like they started fighting, and I don't know how, but somehow Jeff ended up like with his leg snapped in half or something, like, and he's not that kind of guy at all. Completely alcohol related, so he hardly, and he knows that. I mean, he's a good enough dude where he knows that like alcohol just doesn't agree with him. There's a lot of people like that. There's people I know that are like in their 40s and they wet the bed every time they drink. And some people don't even stop. They're like, "Fuck it, I don't even care." But then they have the reputation, and then one girl will say it, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I know. He did that same shit at my pad." But Jeff doesn't. He's just not a big drinker. But I wanted a party. I felt like I deserved it. So we end up going downtown Santa Barbara. Now, I was never a big bar guy, and I missed that whole thing because you got to understand something about me. I started doing heroin when I was a teenager in high school. So by the time when I graduated high school, I graduated in rehab because I had gone there because my addiction. I went back to that same place in Utah. And then I got out. I moved to Worcester to do the writing internship thing in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I wasn't old enough to go to bars. I had fake IDs here and there, and I did that a little bit. But by the time I was in my early 20s, I was selling drugs a lot. I wasn't doing the whole bar culture. It was more shooting speedballs in motel bathrooms type stuff. And ultimately, what happened is I went to prison for almost all of my 20s, or a good chunk of them. And then I got out and I was sober for 3 years. So, by the time we're going to this bar tonight, at this point, it's 2017. I'm 32. And bar culture's not my thing. And in fact, like, we always kind of make fun of it. And we're like, that's, I don't know, people act really, I'm not a sloppy drunk. So when I'm around sloppy drunks, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't hang out with people. I don't care how much I like you. The sloppy, the 4 beer thing, and then you're all touchy feely. It's like, I can't do it. Sorry, can't do it. You see that a lot. Dudes will just start like rubbing. They'll come up to you and just be like, "Dude, what's up with that shadow, homeboy? Fire." And you're like, "Don't touch me, man." And that's what I don't like about alcohol. But so we end up going out and we go to this nightclub. It was like one of the only places that you can dance. Now, one thing about me is I am a horrible dancer, but 0 fucks given. So I'll go to a nightclub and I'll make a fool out of myself just because I don't care. I do it because I'm having fun. And that's really all I care about, is just having a good time. So I'm just doing my ridiculous dancing. I have videos of me dancing tons of times drunk. I promise. I'll post one on Patreon. I have a bunch of them. And I go to this nightclub and I'm acting a fool. And he's being cool. He keeps buying me alcohol. Now, remember, I'd just been in prison for 3 months, including being in solitary confinement for I think about 3 weeks. So being in complete Unabomber-like isolation, just in this little tiny cell, to being at some nightclub and dancing drunk and loaded on Suboxone is just, it's mind-blowing. The contrast blows your mind. I'm just like, I just didn't even care. You know, I was just going for it. And I end up bumping into Rachel at that particular nightclub. She was with Constipated Girl. But then Constipated Girl goes and catches an Uber. And I'm like, snagging her. I'm like, come on, let's go to different bars together. So after I grabbed her, we end up, hanging out the rest of the night. And I think we went to a couple more places. I kept getting more and more drunk. But my tolerance to alcohol has just always been kind of abnormal. I can drink quite a bit, and you can't tell that I'm drunk. I'm not obvious about it. Like, when I posted a video all ridiculous off GHB, I don't act like that when I'm really drunk. I act the exact same, Like, seriously, my dad, if this puts it into perspective, my dad said he's only seen me drunk twice in my entire life. The first time he met my ex-wife, when I drink an entire 30-pack of Budweiser at the beach and tried to, fight some, disabled senior. Not one of my proudest moments, but there was that, and there was another time in high school. I think I was on Xanax, though, and they had to carry me, and I just kind of, plopped on the front lawn, and my dad thought I was dead. He's like, oh my, it was, some, super corny, tragic. He, came up to me, he's like, no, and, flipped me over. He's like, oh, he's just completely hammered. Those are the only 2 times that he's seen me drunk, so I conceal it very well. And I was drinking and drinking and drinking and, being on Suboxone when I hadn't been on it for a couple weeks or whatever. I was feeling really good. And at the end of the night, I think that, I don't know, we had Jeff's car. I want to say we got in Jeff's car and she was about to get an Uber. I was like, come with us. So she comes with us. Yeah, she came with us and we got in Jeff's car. Now at the time, Jeff had a roommate. And Jeff's roommate was this gay psychic that I've talked about. What should I say his name was? I'll just say his first name. His name was George. And George did not like me. He was one of these faux psychics that is exploitative. He has clients and he'll be like, yeah, you're not in the right lunar cycle or whatever the fuck they say. I don't know if there's real psychics. A lot of people have tried to convince me that there are, but this guy was a eccentric gay psychic, which it's kind of like a novelty that wears off really quick. He gets annoying. I remember after I caught this case, and we'll get into all this stuff, but I remember after we caught this case, he'd be like, oh my God, Ryan, I have a psychic intuition that you're going to be just fine. The DA's going to drop the case. I'm like, nah, dude, they're not dropping anything. I'm getting 3 years mandatory minimum for sure. And I have a federal probation violation on top of that. I'm looking at time. He'd be like, no, nope. I looked it up and your chart shows a snake slithering between a bush. Do you know what that means? Oh, no, George, tell me. What does that mean? It means that the DA is going to throw your case out. That's what a snake slithering in the middle of a bush means? Shut the fuck up, dude. And, our disdain towards each other started pretty early. But this particular night, and he's in his, I don't know, early 50s. This particular night, he wasn't home. He travels a lot, to go give his wealthy clients their in-person psychic reading. I'm flying to Louisiana tonight, boys. I'll be back next week. I'm going to go give my reading since the whatever, I don't even know what they say, but it's all about astrology, and check it out. I've been with a lot of women that are into that, so I know that people hold that very sacred, but this guy was a fraud. Let's just say that. So he wasn't home, which was nice, and I ended up taking her up to his room. I'm like, hey, can we go fuck in his room? And Jeff was like, yeah, dude, you just got out of prison. I got you. And Jeff loves me, dude. That's like a real friend. You know, he's like, Paul was Jeff's my other like real friend. You don't have too many of those in your life. You know, someone that really cares for you. You know, when you go to the hole or when you go to prison, they're in pain because they care so much about you. And it's a nice feeling when someone truly cares about you. But you don't find too many of those throughout your life. Maybe 3 or 4 if you're lucky. And so far, that's pretty much what I've had. The real friends. So I take her up there, and I notice she's pretty wasted. And I'm like, you know what? I'm trying my thing, and she's just like, just passes out. I'm like, pfft. So I pass out too. Next morning, I wake up super dehydrated, like, and it was funny. She fell asleep upside down, so like her ass was in my face, and like I woke up and it was just like right there because she was like up, like I fell asleep and she was just like upside down like this, and I'm like, her ass was in my face, and I remember waking up hungover. You know, that thirst, that unquenchable thirst when you haven't, or even when you do drink frequently, when you just wake up with a mean hangover and you could stick a straw in a swimming pool and probably drink the entire pool because you're so thirsty. I felt like that morning, and I remember just kind of feeling like shit and just stretching. I had my shirt off and I was just like, I can't believe the difference. Yesterday, I woke up in solitary confinement, literally, like probably rolling over with morning wood and just beating off real quick. Hating life, you know? Well, no, I was getting out, so I was probably very happy. But, you know, that solitude existence is pretty creepy, you know? And then today I wake up and there's this really nice ass in my face. I'm just like, you know, I just couldn't believe it. And so she wakes up and I'm like, hey, yeah, you were drunk to the point where I felt like I was taking advantage. So I just called a timeout. But with that being said, since I was such a nice guy about it, maybe we can make up for it this morning. And she's just like, I need a condom. I don't even know how those work. I was like, oh, fucking what? She's like, a condom. I'm like, oh my God, no. I've been in this situation before. Started freaking out. You know, and I was like, hold up. And I remember running downstairs with like this sheet, you know, draped around me. And I was like, Jeff, do you have a condom? He's like, I do. I was like, what? You know, because I mean, he was a heroin addict for a long time. It's kind of like, you know, when you're a heroin addict for a long time, I don't know. Me personally, I haven't always made the safest decisions that way. But so he had one, and I go up there, and you know, it ended up working out, and it was a pretty wonderful way to get out of prison. You know, we did our thing, and he ended up driving her somewhere, I don't know, to work or something with me, and we went out and we got bagels, we drank orange juice, and he's just looking at me. He's like, man, he's like, that was a hell of a first night, you know, steak dinner, haircut, waxed eyebrows. You got to get loaded, you got to go out and get drunk, you got laid. Welcome home, bro. I love you. I was like, I love you too. And, you know, everything seemed perfect, you know? I mean, I was definitely worried about the material losses that I had endured, but you know, it's almost like every New Year's, how my New Year's is, how my actual New Year's Eve, and when it turns midnight, like how it all is, generally dictates what that year is going to look like for me for some reason. If I have a good New Year's, it's going to be a good year. If I have a bad New Year's, always something really bad happens that year. Every time. Or it just kind of sets the tone for the entire year. And it's kind of similar when you get out of prison. Or at least that's my superstition talking. Boy, was I wrong about that. I was about to have absolutely the weirdest period of my life. Everything from the pimping and pandering, which we're about to get into, getting back with Casey, who I hadn't seen for a couple weeks back, all these crazy things that happened right in that period. And then I had the breakdown. And then I went to prison, and that third prison term was out of control. And I've never talked about it because I know the quality of those stories. But I just think it's important to lead up to it so you know everything. There's so many things you need to know to go into that particular series. But hey, I appreciate you guys. Stay safe, stay hot, stay tan, stay bomb, and like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. That's shit that YouTube people say, right? Hit the bell. Palabra.